Going live. Cool, we're live.
Awesome.
Awesome. All right. So it's so funny like talking into this and not being able to like see the people who are watching us. But welcome everyone to our Meteor Ask Us Anything. I'm Alice and
I'm Sashko.
This is Sashko. Yeah, so this is the first time we've done something like this. It's really awesome to see how many people have replied and all the questions that we've gotten. So this is going to be like a more casual Q&A. Feel free to keep submitting questions as the event goes on and upvoting the ones that are already up. There are a lot of questions, but we'll get to as many as we're able to. So just a couple things about us. So I'm Alice. I'm currently the director of community at Meteor. So we have a team of 3 people, including me, who work on community at Meteor. So I've been at Meteor for about 2.5 years. And Sashko, you want to say a couple words?
My name is Sashko. I've been at Meteor for, in a week, it'll be 1 year.
Wow. Should be like a Meteor-versary celebration for you.
And right now I'm working on the framework team. So we're working on things like front-end frameworks type stuff, making Meteor into like a great platform to build all parts of your app. Before that, I did some of the Windows porting and integration, working on some of the mobile stuff. And right now my biggest project is working on Meteor and React, making them work well together. Yep. Which is great because some of the questions are about that.
Which is a great segue into the currently top voted question is, what are the advantages and disadvantages of React over Blaze? And I know you've worked on both.
Yeah, that's right. Should we click start answering? I don't know
how
this works.
Let's do that. So what that will do is, in the playback later, it will people can like fast forward to answer this particular question.
Wow, and it overlays it over the video.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Fancy.
Yeah. So React versus Blaze is an interesting question. So I know there's a question down there that maybe is a precursor to this one, but I'll try to answer it in a way that is not. So I like React and Blaze both. I think they both have a lot of advantages. I would say Blaze's main advantages are that it's a very HTML-like templating language. So if you've never used like Angular or React or anything like that before, Blaze is probably the most natural one to get started with, because you can just write plain HTML and put some little special directives in there, and it basically feels like you're just writing an HTML page that happens to be reactive. Mm-hmm. The other thing that's great about Blaze is it works pretty well with random like jQuery libraries off the internet. So if you want to like use Google Maps or use some pop-up component or something else like that, it's generally easier to do it with Blaze because it's good at working around like random changes to the HTML. And those two factors together make it, I think, really great for beginners.
Does React not work as well with random jQuery plugins out of the box?
Yeah, so unless you're very careful with React, sometimes it always assumes that it has control over the entire view tree under it. So unless you like specifically tell it not to do something about a particular part of your view, it's going to like try to compare the previous elements and the new elements, and like if there's elements that were added in the meantime, it gets like somewhat confused. And there's ways to work around it. It's just not trivial. So basically, React, I would say, is a great solution for people who are kind of like more advanced and want like more powerful features. Like I really like React because it lets you write your UI basically in plain JavaScript, which means that you get to take advantage of all the scoping and flow control and like all the libraries that you have that are for JavaScript specifically. Because in Blaze you can't, because there's a specific templating language they use that's not JavaScript. Mm-hmm. But the disadvantage of that in React is you end up with your view code looking like really complicated, because you're switching constantly between JavaScript and HTML and all these different pieces. So it can look a little bit weird. Right now, personally, I prefer React because I like having that power, and the like code looking weird doesn't affect me that much. But I've seen people, people who might be designers or new to reactive front-end programming would prefer to see something that looks more like HTML.
Mm-hmm. Cool.
Yeah, and there's actually a really interesting blog post that just got released like an hour ago or something that also compares some of the performance aspects of React versus Blaze. And I would have thought that React would be faster because that's something that they pitch a lot, but apparently it's actually like Blaze is faster in a lot of situations, or like they're at least even. So that's actually not one of the advantages or disadvantages of either.
That's interesting to know. All right.
Which is interesting.
Cool. I think we can go to the next question. So what's your opinion on mobile UI frameworks like React and Ionic, and will Meteor support them better?
Yeah, so there's already a lot of good community packages out there for Ionic specifically. So Ionic comes with, the way I understand it, like several parts. One part is like a command line tool that is somewhat similar to the Meteor command line tool. And another thing is like the CSS framework and the UI components that you can write in your app. So I think the Meteor command line tool, as far as I know, is a pretty good competitor right now to the Ionic one, because you can still type a couple of commands to generate your mobile app. People have also packaged the UI components of Ionic, which are written in Angular, in a way that they work with Meteor Angular, which is kind of the Meteor's Angular integration. So I think you can achieve a pretty good experience with Ionic and Meteor today. However, I think we should do more to make it easy to use Meteor with any kind of front-end library that you would like to use it with. One of the things that makes it kind of hard right now is some of the components of Meteor are packaged up as Meteor packages, and you can't really include a Meteor package easily in your Ionic project or presumably in your React project. So people are working on some different ways to solve that. Like there's JavaScript front ends to Meteor now that you can use, where like you just include a library and you can connect to your Meteor server, and then use like all of the Ionic or React or whatever front end stuff. I know Uri, the maintainer of Angular Meteor, is working on that right now. So we'll see where that goes. And I unfortunately don't know too much about React, but I imagine the story will be similar there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So I think I'll actually do Josh's question next, because it's relevant to what you've just been talking about. So Josh is asking, there seems to be a big focus on React and Angular with this next release, and what does this mean for those of us that like Blazing spacebars?
Yeah, so I also like Blazing spacebars. As you guys may know, I've been I've been working a little bit to improve it over the last year or so. And I think the reason that it looks like there's a big focus on React and Angular is partially because those are the new things in the release. Like, we're not going to be like, hey, we're releasing Blaze and Meteor 1.2 because you've had it for so long already. But I think, to me, the goal with this release, in that sense, is to show that Meteor is not necessarily like it can be a monolithic thing that gives you all the tools in one box. But if you're interested in switching out different components, or you're already familiar with certain libraries, then you can use those as well. And I think the only way we can effectively show people that is by telling them that directly and saying like, hey, you want to use React and Meteor, like here's how you do it, and it's like official. It's not some like sketchy underground thing. So yeah, I don't think that. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say it's definitely part of the whole like Meteor as a platform. Like Meteor isn't just a front end library. It's like a complete platform for using all different kinds of technologies that you need to make like a modern JavaScript application work. So I think not only is it really helpful for kind of the technical experience of using Meteor, being able to use whatever front end you want. I've also found it's also been really helpful for people to realize that Meteor is like a complete platform. Because when they're like Angular versus Meteor, then like, oh, Angular plus Meteor, then it's like a different thing than what they were assuming with that question.
That's totally real. Like, you see all these questions on the internet that are like, should I use Angular or Meteor? Should I use React or Meteor? And I think like, one of our goals is to head off those questions and say like, hey, you should use them together. And kind of another thing is, like I've already seen posts on Reddit or somewhere else that are like, why would I use React and Meteor together? It's like putting like peanut butter in my cereal or something like that. And I was like, no, actually, like I make apps like that every day, and it's like a great experience because Meteor like fills in all the parts that the front end libraries don't fill in.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, cool. Do you have anything else you want to say on this question before we?
So the question is really, what does this mean for those of us that like Blazing spacebars? I think that another way to look at these releases is to find out what different ways you can work with. What are the different ways where you can work with Meteor and a front-end library together? because like React and Angular have somewhat a different programming style than Blaze does, for example. So I think seeing how people use all these front-end libraries together will give us more information to figure out the future of what Blaze and Spacebar might look like. You know, whether that's like introducing more React-like components into Blaze, or it's people already have projects which let you compile your Spacebar's templates into React, stuff like that. So there's a lot of different things we can do once we get more information about what people are trying to do.
All right, cool. Yeah, and people, like I said, feel free to ask follow-up questions, add additional questions, upvote questions as we're going along. All right, so let's move to this question by Christopher Versar. Sorry if I said your name wrong. I've seen Sashko be very active in both development and community efforts, like debugging packages. What does everyday work look like? How much of what gets done, and what are the guidelines for what is supposed to get done every day? So,
yeah. So I look at the whole community thing as almost like a job benefit in some sense. Like I've had some, I mean, this is my first like full-time job out of college, but before that I had a couple of internships, and at those companies it's kind of, you just get a project, you work on it every day at your desk, and then you like report to your manager or something. Here I feel like the benefit is like I'm actually reporting to the actual users of the platform online, and like being able to interact with them is something that I see as like a really big benefit. And the fact that like Nick, my manager, is always like pushing me to interact with the community more, and like we're doing this stuff and I can give talks and things like that is like even better. So in terms of everyday work, I think I spend maybe like, I don't know, 70% of my time or something working on whatever the next big project is, which currently is like the React thing, which we're buttoning up right now.
yeah, 1.2.
Yeah, and Meteor 1.2. And then I spend some time, you know, interacting with people on the forums to find out what people want. I also, every once in a while, will build my own little apps. Nothing you've heard of, but like just trying to stay in touch with what it's like to build an app with Meteor. And along the way, writing some of my own little packages just to, you know, to help myself work and to see like, what things I can fill in the ecosystem.
Yeah.
So in terms of everyday work, it's great because I can split my time between like working on the next big project and also doing like random small things that are still actually benefiting me in my job.
Yeah, yeah. And I think this question is also, if I'm reading it right, is asking after kind of what does, I guess, like the Meteor like product cycle look like, or how do we choose what we're going to work on and when, and how do we decide what we're working on like this particular week or this particular day?
That's right. Yeah. So until now, not until now, now and in the future and the past, we've been working on kind of like a focus cycle thing where we do basically 3-week cycles where we spend 1 week like planning and doing little odds and ends, and then 2 weeks actually like focused working on the project. So basically every one of those, we call them blur weeks, which is like the 1 week where we do planning. We see what we need to get done to finish our current projects, see what projects we need to work on in the future, have meetings with people about what kinds of things we should prioritize. So a recent development is we now have a new team called Framework, which is going to be leading the charge on the Meteor framework itself. So all the parts that you need to actually build an app, which currently includes mostly doing stuff around the front end stuff. It's going to include having the really, really good ES 2015 integration and a lot of great stuff in the future. So right now we're actually doing some planning to hopefully make Meteor like the best framework out there for building JavaScript applications, and one that will be welcoming to people when they're coming from React world or Angular world or Rails world or .NET world or something like that.
Cool. Anything else you want to say before we move to the next question?
No, yeah, I think I'm good.
Okay. All right, so next up we have by Arjun Rajan, how is Meteor planning to solve hot code reload / GDP issues related to Cordova? And Cordova is something you've worked on a fair bit.
Yeah, so Cordova, if you guys don't know, is also called PhoneGap. It was a thing that lets you basically package up your front end part of your app and ship it as a native mobile app, which runs inside a web view, but all the JavaScript code is still contained on the phone itself. So you're not loading the code every time you go to the app. So what happens is in Meteor on the web, every time you deploy a new version of your app, that front end code gets pushed directly to all of the people who are currently looking at the app. So your page basically refreshes and you get the new version. On Cordova, it's not as simple because since the code actually lives on the device, we need to basically copy the code onto the device and then reload it running from the phone itself. So I think some of the issues that people are talking about are related to like what happens if somehow the copying doesn't work or it's corrupted or something like that. I guess you can sometimes end up with an app that can't really start very well if you accidentally pushed a broken version. So I don't know exactly 100% what we're doing to solve this problem, but I do know that we recently had a new member of our team, Martin, who's the creator of Meteor iOS or iOS Meteor.
Yeah, I think it's Meteor iOS.
Meteor iOS, that's right, which is a popular library that connects native iOS code to Meteor. So he's currently taking charge of all of our Cordova related things and doing a lot of great work on that. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is around simplifying the implementation of that system. So I imagine like solving this kind of issue is going to be at the top of his list. So I don't know specifically about this issue, but a lot of fixes are going to be coming out in Meteor 1.2 for the Meteor Cordova story. Yeah. And now that we have somebody working on it full time, hopefully a lot more fixes will be coming soon after.
Yeah. And for those of you who haven't seen it, Martin gave a really cool talk, I think 2 dev shops ago. So if you go on our YouTube channel and search Martin, it's like Martijn, you can see some of the work that Martin's done actually before he joined Meteor. Cool. Yeah, so this next one by Mikhail Shaposhnikov is Meteor a safe technology to invest time learning for the next several years? Well, I mean, certainly we think so, or we wouldn't be working here. Like, I think basically what this question is asking is, like, you know, is Meteor going to stick around? Is Meteor going to have adoption in the future? Are you going to be able to get jobs writing Meteor code? And I think that's absolutely. So, like, you know, as many people, actually surprisingly, a few people know that like Meteor is a funded company, and or like the core team is employed by a company that's really well funded. The founders are really experienced, so I think there will be kind of active stewardship of the product for like the indefinitely foreseeable future. And yeah, and then a lot of the stuff we've been doing like recently with the stuff coming in 1.2, the React integration, the Angular integrations, is about kind of staying on top of the evolving like JavaScript ecosystem, because it is an ecosystem that's like evolving really fast. Like new technologies come up all the time, and it's a big priority for us to stay on top of those things and make sure that we are kind of like current with the trends in the industry. So yeah, I would say, you know, it's definitely early days. So like it's been like about half a year since 1.0 came out. So I think the ecosystem around companies and jobs and that sort of thing is developing. But I think like all that stuff has been growing really fast. And if you look at the trends over time, you look at, you know, all the kind of different usage metrics, it's been growing very fast, just organically. And now as we're growing, we're able to invest more in marketing. Like we haven't really done any like explicit marketing of the platform for the first like 2 or 3 years. And now we're able to invest a lot more in increasing adoption and that sort of thing. So I'm at least personally really confident that Meteor's a good bet to be something that you would want to invest time learning. So I don't know if you have anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, I think my personal vision of Meteor is that the goal, at least for me, is to take all of the super cutting edge technology that is out there, like ES 2015, like React, things like that, which often take a lot of effort to get started using, or it might be confusing, or the documentation's not that good, and package them up in a way that is easy to get started with and like easy to build an app with. So I think ideally, Meteor will be the place where you can get all the newest technology without all of the hassle and like having to stay on top of every Hacker News post that like that technology comes with. So like two reasons that that Meteor might not be a way safe technology is like if we fall behind the newest technology because people always want to be using the best stuff, or if we make it hard for people to get started with. And I don't think we're in danger of doing either of those things. I think we're really going to stay at the intersection of like ease of use and cutting edge, which is really where I want to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is like pretty much like something that, you know, any technology you use, you're gonna have to sort of make that judgment call, like you sort of look at, you know, who's behind the project, look at kind of the industry trends, and you know, every developer is sort of making like an implicit bet on the future of different technologies. So I think like, you know, this is like a kind of question you would ask with any technology that you're using.
Yeah.
Cool. So we've got Josh Owens. Since React has native server-side rendering, is that going to push SSR further down the roadmap?
So I'm not exactly sure if down means farther away or closer. But
maybe we should take this question to be like, since React has native server-side rendering, like how does that affect like server-side rendering on the product roadmap?
Yeah. So server-side rendering is interesting because one thing that I always want to be doing is looking at the problems that exist rather than the solutions that we want, right? So server-side rendering, I think, might be an example of one of those things where there's actually two problems that server-side rendering is targeting, that one of the solutions is that server-side rendering. So the two problems I see are first SEO. How do you get highly ranked on Google? How do you make it so that when people post to Facebook, they see a nice thumbnail instead of like a blank page, something like that? So it's one thing with server-side rendering. The other thing is getting the web page to show up really quickly when you first go there.
Page load.
Yeah, so if you're running a blog or something, you want people to be able to click on your link to your blog and have it appear instantly instead of having like a second or two of loading time. So having said that, I think server-side rendering is a good way of achieving those two goals in certain cases. So there's already some great projects going on with Aeronoda and Flow Router and React server-side rendering. So that's one possible solution to doing the server-side rendering thing is if you write your app in React, then it truly will be very easy to do it. There's also some solutions to SEO and app load time that involve, for example, for SEO, we have the Spiderable package, which currently is pretty slow because what it does is it runs your app in a fake browser on the server and then pushes that result to the client. So that can definitely be improved. I agree. The SEO aspect, it works, but it's not the best it could be. As for loading your app quickly, it turns out that like rendering the UI on the server and then pushing that isn't necessarily the best way to end up with an app with which you can interact quickly. Because even if you render all the HTML on the server and you display it to the user, they're still not going to be able to like click on any of the buttons because the buttons need the JavaScript to be there and the data to be there for them to do anything. So it might be better to invest also in other ways. For example, Aeronoda has this thing called fast render, which ships all of the initial data for the page along with the initial response. So that might actually, I think, has some great benchmarks where that actually ends up with like a really, really, really fast initial load time, even without strict like server-side rendering support. Yeah, but I think like things are getting really exciting with the whole React thing, and that's showing like people will figure out ways to make server-side rendering work with that, which we can maybe adopt with the Blaze side of the story or with Angular or something like that.
Yeah. So do you think the fact that React has server-side rendering affects how we?
I think if anything, it should be a positive because if people do build server-side rendering with React and Meteor and they find that that's like a huge boost to their app, or it's actually like not that hard to do and like there's only certain things we need to tweak in Meteor to make it possible or like very easy, then I imagine that would like push server-side rendering to be sooner rather than later because people can see what benefits there are. Because right now, like I said, it's not necessarily clear what the benefits from server-side rendering would be as opposed to other solutions.
Yeah, good answer. Cool. All All right, so Justin Rudio has a question for us personally, and he wants to know, how did both of you get started at Meteor? Where do you see Meteor in a year or two from now? Yeah, okay, I could start. So yeah, I started at Meteor about 2.5 years ago, January 2013. So it was like a much smaller and different kind of project at the time. This was, well before 1.0. I was employee number 7, I think. So basically how I got started at Meteor is I had been, well, the short answer is that I had been working with Jade Wong, who is Meteor's first community hire. I've been working with her on one of her other projects before, so we had kind of a good working relationship. Jade ran like a network of hacker houses called Shea JJ, and this was like a kind of live-work community for people in the Bay Area. And so I was helping her run her houses, like do logistics, do community building things through that. And so yeah, so then and then Jade actually met the CEO, Jeff Schmidt, at I think it was a conference or a convention or something for people who do intentional community. So these sort of like, intentional community living like houses. And that's actually how Jade got into Meteor, and then I got into Meteor through Jade. Yeah, so I guess maybe you can answer the first question, and then we'll both answer the second question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I got started at Meteor. I first heard about Meteor in October 2013 from my girlfriend, Angela. And basically, I was talking to her about like a framework that I wish would exist or that I would like to build. And then she basically told me that it already exists and people are working on it. It's called Meteor. And at the time, it was very new, so I had never even heard about it. So then I like went and looked at the website, and it was like right around the time of the career fair at my university, and I was like, holy crap, like how can I work at this company like immediately? So I basically went and met up with Matt, who came to give a talk at MIT. Matt is one of the co-founders. Basically, I hounded him until he talked to me, and then until he gave me an interview over here in San Francisco.
This is before we had a recruiting department, and it was like some amount of work to talk to someone.
Yeah, and I think like we're just getting started on booting up the whole college hiring thing. Before then, it was mostly like connections. I didn't know anybody on the team. That was basically like I need to work at this company like no matter what. So for me, it was definitely like a passion thing where like if I wasn't working at Meteor and I was working somewhere else, like I would be working on Meteor in my free time probably. So now I'm basically getting paid for like doing nothing. It's awesome. Yeah, and then I started pretty much full time last August, about a year ago, and since then I've been having a lot of fun, doing a lot of cool projects.
Yeah, and you did like an internship first, like over the winter, right?
Yeah, so it was like after I already signed my full-time thing to work here, I like came over here for a month because we got like a month off at MIT to do random stuff. So I did some random projects, worked on accounts, made a cool little 3D demo thing that some people might have seen. Yeah, so that was really So that was a really good way to get started. And then I spent my last semester of college being really excited because I had all this like initial experience.
Yeah. Okay, and then where do you see Meteor in a year or two from now?
It's hard. It's hard because Meteor's only been around like as a real product for about a year or two. So
it depends how you measure. Like I would say Meteor's maybe like, well, let's see, I think the founders did they were in the like 2011 or 2012 YC batch, so like they're
2012, I think.
2012, yeah. So I'd say it's like maybe 3 years old, but it was it was definitely there's like a long sort of like research and development phase until like 1.0 coming out was kind of like a big sort of milestone for the company, and like before 1.0 it was kind of, it almost felt more like an R&D group, like a university or something, than a startup. And then when 1.0 comes out, it's like the product is stamped as being something that people should use in production. And people were actually already using it in production before that, but like 1.0 made it official, and then then after that, with 1.0 coming out, then Galaxy has moved to the 4 as being like the next big milestone. So Galaxy, for people who don't know very much about it, is Meteor's like commercial product that's going to be like enterprise grade hosting and deployment services. So that's something that we're working really hard on now. And that's also the way Meteor is going to be making most of its revenue. So that will also be like a big, it'll be like a big kind of, it'll be like a really positive thing when like Meteor is able to be like self-sustaining in that way and not like dependent on getting like more VC funding all the time. So yeah, so where do we see Meteor in a year or two from now? So I think in a year or two from now, like Galaxy will be out, Meteor will be like a revenue generating company. We'll probably be much bigger than we are right now. The Meteor project, so that's like kind of company stuff. The Meteor project, I think, will be there'll be a lot more people using Meteor than are like even more people than are using it now. There are a lot of like people sometimes ask like, what is like a household name company that uses Meteor that you can use as a reference point. And like a lot of the and that takes some time to come out. Like we if you go on our website, we have these case studies of companies that use Meteor, and a lot of them like they're really impressive. They do really well, but like they're like they're startups that are or they're companies that target like businesses as their customers or that are in a particular niche such as education. So even with them being really successful, they might not become a household name. But I think like in a year or two, they're probably out of that like body of companies that are using Meteor, like one of them or maybe a couple of them will like sort of reach that level where people outside of a particular niche or outside of a particular industry have heard of it, and then we can use that as something that's like, oh yeah, like such and such company uses Meteor.
Yeah.
Do you have stuff?
Yeah, I think that covered a lot of it. Mostly like as a general thing or like a big blanket, like what is Meteor going to be in a year or two from now? I imagine it's going to be, or I hope that it's going to be basically like the best way to build your app using JavaScript. So it'll be the thing that combines all the best different frameworks and libraries out there in a way that's like easy to get started with and like also easy to run in production on Galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
We're gonna have a lot more time of talking to all of our production users of Meteor to fix all the things that are bugging them, which is something that we recently started doing, is reaching out to people who are building their whole business on Meteor and seeing like how they can, how their lives could be easier.
Mm-hmm.
So doing that for 2 years will certainly help a lot. We're going to have a lot more people working at the company, which will allow us to tackle a lot more of the bugs and a lot more of the feature requests that we have, and hopefully basically be like, I think we'll have an advantage over people like Angular or React, which are like subsets of large companies like Google or Facebook, because for us, like Meteor and Galaxy's 2 products would be like literally life or death for the company. So for us, like making the framework and the platform the best it can be is like the top priority rather than figuring out how that fits into the business model of some other company.
Right.
So I think that puts us to be in a really, really exciting place in 2 years where everything will really come together.
Yeah, and then quick plug for our talks tonight. So many of you know we have a like a monthly mini conference that we run in San Francisco and London. It's called Meteor Dev Shop. And we are, the San Francisco event is happening today at our office, and this evening we're having feature talks that will be live streaming. So you can go to devshop.meteor.com, and Jeff, our CEO, is giving a talk called the JavaScript State of the Union, which is kind of like a big overview of like the JavaScript landscape and Meteor's role in that. And I think if you're interested in this question, you will also be very interested in that talk. Cool. Anything you want to add to this question?
No.
All right, cool. Yeah, thanks everyone for submitting all these questions. Oh man, okay.
Why are these no longer sorted?
They're not sorting, and I've been just assuming that these are the upvoted ones at the top. Okay,
maybe we can resort it somehow?
I don't know. So okay, so let's tackle some of these like 3 voted questions. Time for a serious question. Where can I get/purchase Meteor swag? T-shirts, stickers, anything. Yeah. So I can answer this one. We don't currently have a store, but it's one of my goals to get a store set up so that people can purchase them. Right now, the best way to get swag is to do something awesome for the Meteor community. So okay, so like, you know, like one thing that anyone can do is if you give a Meteor talk or you help run a Meteor meetup, we will mail you stickers like for free for that to hand out at your meetup or at your event. So if you go to speakerkit.meteor.com, there's resources in there that will help you give talks. That you have like, you know, sort of standard decks that you can use with speaker notes and demo code that you can use. So all you have to do is just email community@meteor.com and that will reach the community team and we'll send you stickers for that. And then t-shirts, it's kind of just like we'll send t-shirts out to people if we sort of notice that they've done something really cool. So if they've like written some Meteor learning resource that is really useful to people, or some like package that a lot of people use. So we're sort of, that's sort of like an opportunistic thing. Like so we definitely miss things. So if you like see someone doing something really awesome in the community and you think they should get a shirt, and you can like nominate them for that. So just like, again, you can email community or if you yourself have like done something that you think is like really awesome for the community, you can reach out to us. And we love people reaching out to us just in general, because we want to sort of be in touch with all the people who are, or like kind of know that like the people who are doing like really awesome things for the community. Yeah, so that one got upvoted again while I was answering it. Yeah, so basically, I think I answered this question. So let's see. Looks like it.
Yeah, I refreshed it.
Oh, you refreshed it? Okay, cool. So now it's sorting by votes again. Yeah. This is the first time we're doing this.
I hope that it looks like things are lagging a little bit.
Yeah. Oh yeah, something I should have said in the, yeah, our video is going wonky.
It could be a good reason to use a MacBook Pro.
You think?
Hangouts is not a fast thing.
Really?
Yeah, like we were trying to run a Hangout off of Anubhav's computer, which is MacBook Air, and it just like did not work.
Really?
It overheats and dies.
Good to know.
I don't know if it's working or not. It's hard to say.
Yeah. Well, anyway, hopefully it's not terrible for people. You can put in the chat if you can't hear us anymore. But we might be just like
still chat.
if they can still chat, yeah. We might be approaching like sort of the like the natural like end of life for a hangout. But let's try answering a few more.
I don't know. Is there a way to find out if it like is still working?
Good question.
I could try grabbing my computer and connecting with that really fast.
Yeah, you want to do that?
Yeah.
Okay. We could also, if we need to, like stop this broadcast and then start it again, which might help.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, how do I like run the crowdcast?
You would just go to that link.
Yeah.
And you probably want to mute your computer so we don't get feedback. Yeah, and something I should say at the.
Oh, everything
okay.
works fine. Okay.
Okay, it's
cool.
Good. Yeah, sorry for the intermission. Yeah. Oh, and something I should say is that even when everything's working perfectly, there's like about a 20 or 30-second lag. So if you're posted something and we haven't reacted to it, it's not because we don't love you and are ignoring you. It's just the nature of Hangouts. Okay,
great.
Cool. Let's keep going then. So, where did it go? Will Meteor add native REST API support in the future?
Yeah. So basically, there's a general question here of what do we do about getting different data sources into Meteor? So right now, as you may know, pretty much the only thing we support like natively like as a core thing is MongoDB. And so what